live in the States and you're looking at all these JDM imports finally becoming legal, okay? But these two are still illegal for another couple of years. This is a Nissan Laurel, and this is a Skyline R34 GTT. We're gonna compare both of these cars because they both have the RB25DET under the hood, and you guys will be able to get your hands on them very, very soon, which makes me very excited. So let's go hop inside, go for a drive, and see what they're all about. Oh yeah, RB25, guys, let's go. This is an RB25 battle. Straight up, you guys, I'm in love with these cars that aren't the 2Js, that aren't the RB26s, but they're just the tier below, the much cheaper parts, still really robust power, and they're in a bunch of JDM cars that we now can import. So, all right, you guys, real quick before we get into today's video, this episode is sponsored by manscaped.com. This is literally what Manscaped does, okay? In a couple words, that's what Manscaped does, okay? Right now, if you pick up their Perfect Package 3.0 kit, which yes, includes the Lawnmower 3.0, you actually receive 2 free gifts, the Shed Manscaped travel bag, as well as anti-chafing boxer briefs. Of course, manscaped.com is the only men's grooming product brand that is dedicated to the waist down. So when we're getting in and out of cars real quick or on and off mini bikes that don't particularly work very well, we can keep ourselves nice and groomed and staying fresh. So in the Perfect Package, you get the Preserver, you get the Reviver, you get an attachment for the lawnmower, which in fact has a light and is waterproof, perfect for the shower. You can save 20% off just for being on our channel. So with the code ROADS, you can do that. The link is in the description, and on with the video. We're gonna start off with the Laurel here. The Laurel, this generation, the C35, ran from 1996 to 2002, and this generation never came with a manual gearbox. Luckily, this Laurel is a Club S, and it has been converted to a 5-speed manual. So you guys may recognize this car. Good friend of the show, Patrick, the BC Roll on Instagram. He imports a lot of cars. Oh yeah, there we go. 7,500 RPM. Wow. And that is thanks to a standalone aftermarket ECU. In my experience, and a few friends of mine that I know who have tuned up and fully rebuilt RB engines multiple times, RB25s, have told me that you can cleanly rev to 7,500, 8,000 RPM, which is getting very close to what an RB26 can do out of the box. So the Laurel here is extremely similar to a few other Nissan cars you guys know and love from the 90s, okay? So a lot of S13, S14, S15 parts, namely suspension-wise, and R33 and R34 suspension parts will actually fit on the Laurel and vice versa, which is awesome. So even with an R34 Skyline, you can get a few replacement suspension components from just your standard Laurel here, even if it is an automatic, which is pretty cool. A lot of the parts are interchangeable. Some things you might notice, the Laurel is a tad bit longer in wheelbase than the R34 Coupe. It is also quite a bit longer, actually, in terms of the overall body of the vehicle. Okay, you guys, it's always a good day when you're behind the wheel of an R34 Skyline. You're looking at this one, you're like, Marcus, what are you talking about? This is an R34 GTR. Look at the front. Look at the front. Look at the wing. It's not. It's a GTT. So this has basically been made to look like an R34 GTR. Key differences between the GTR and the GTT, before we get into it real quick. Basically everything has been done here. Visually speaking, exterior-wise, to make it look like a GTR. The one thing that kind of requires a lot more extensive modifications is the rear fenders and the front fenders as well. So you'll notice when you look at a GTR and the rear hips of that car, much wider than a GTT. That's the dead giveaway that you can tell a GTT. So Nissan produced the R34 between 98 and 2002. So the Laurel and this GTT, if they were both in stock form, are, you know, very appropriately priced. They're very similar in price, which is kind of why I brought them out. These are the cars that don't require the full-on GTR tax. They don't take the RB26 tax. They do have the RB tax. There is an RB tax. I mean, you're going to be paying a little bit more than you'd be paying for some of the comparable Toyota engines. But at the same time, especially here in Vancouver, our JDM scene, I'm so proud of us over here. I'm so proud of you guys. The JDM scene in Vancouver, I feel, has never been bigger. I mean, since we started the show, oh my God, that sounds unreal. Unbelievable. It's the JDM scene here is really awesome. So the availability of parts, you're really not gonna have a tough time finding parts for these engines. This RB25 is straight piped. So it's got a downpipe, catless downpipe, and then basically it's got a straight pipe turbo back exhaust system. There is no muffler here. Oh, wow. So it's basically a factory DET RB25 Neo in this. Few modifications. You got a front mount up there, a few other things. Oh my God. It's definitely louder than Patrick's car. It's cool because it has this kind of like tuner vibe right out of the gate. You know, these gauges are very like JDM, and that's also why I love the S15 Spec R, for instance. It has a factory A-pillar gauge pod, and manufacturers just don't do that anymore. And the driving position is just a little different. Now, this is a factory seat. You're definitely sitting higher up than Patrick has his Recaro sat, but especially with the manual swap, this also started off as an automatic, so these are both manual swap cars. You have a lot of options in how you want to place your seating position. You can change the location of your shifter, especially if you're doing a manual swap. You can change the steering wheel. You can put a deep dish on it. You can change your seat and your seat rails and everything, right? So regardless of the RB25 you decide to go with, you definitely need to get the manual. It's got a nice shift sound there too, Patrick. I like that because the red line is, I mean, I'm revving deep into the red line when I look at the tach, so that's always cool. It is a little bit beefier and heavier than, let's say, a Chaser. I know you guys are probably wondering, like, Marcus, Chaser, 1J, that's more my style, Toyota, reliability, you know. But if you're looking for an RB, and if you can't settle for anything, if your heart cannot settle for anything less than an RB, you're gonna find yourself with an RB at some point, right? What is done with the turbo, it's the factory turbo housing, stock, manifold, all of that. When you flip the hood open, everything looks bone stock. It's a real sleeper, but the internals have been done up, so basically it's got all billet internals, and it's effectively just pushing more air. And boost is right around factory wastegate. The Neo motors, peak torque is at 3,200 RPM. Patrick has definitely pushed that much higher, and peak power as well. So, whereas you'd have to start thinking about shifting around 6,500 RPM in the factory car, God, that sounds amazing. This car, you could just rev the snot out of it. It feels really good though. We got an S15 steering wheel on here. Oh, wow. Wow. It's really interesting. Just with a couple of bolt-on modifications that Patrick's done here, it has completely transformed the power band since the last time I drove it. It's completely pushed up top, which is a really good thing. It feels way closer to an RB26 now, and you feel it really pick up after 5,500 RPM. 55 to 75 is your sweet spot now in this car. So around town, you can still get decent, you know, decent fuel mileage. But when you want the turbo, it is, yeah, it's all there. I love the way the Laurel looks. A lot of people like the older Laurels. If you're into that 80s style, you're into that stuff, which I am too. And if they're done out nice, they look real clean. You can put them up next to an 8.6 and it looks right at home. Whereas the C35, like we did today, this just pairs much better with an R34 because they are very similar. HKS blow-off valve there. Now the steering in the Skyline's just a little bit heavier, and the rack is absolutely a little bit tighter than the Laurel. Being an automatic only car from the factory, obviously the Laurel was kind of catered to more comfortable highway driving, city driving, daily driving. I'm really interested to see what the prices are going to do, but I have a feeling that both the Laurel and the R34 are probably going to play a little bit of a game rising up the ranks in value and in asking price over the next few years. That is absolutely speculation. I mean, they're going to rise in value. By how much, I don't know. But historically, every single vehicle that was never sold in the States but then becomes legal later is always worth, they always rocket up in value as soon as they become available in the States. Same with the S15. Pick up an S15 right now if you can too. Like even an NA one, because those are going to be worth so much in a few years. Oh, just a great driving experience. This is one of those cars, the cars that are really in the sweet spot of drivability and an analog experience, but that still has AC, that still has power locks, power windows, electronic sunroof, and you've got all the amenities. The R34 has traction control, just kind of, you know, iffy. It's kind of creeping in on my rights here a little bit, right? But you can turn it off, as with most traction, and because it is a primitive system, off means off. There's no in between. So it will cut your power and your revs very early when it is on, but when it's off, it is fully off. This car is so fast and furious. I love it. I love it. This is a wrap too. It's not paint. Bayside blue wrap. Let me put it this way. This car weighs 300 pounds less than an R34 GTR. So right off the bat, you're shaving weight. Certain things are going to come alive at lower speeds and at a lesser threshold of like the car's capability than with a GTR. You really got to be pushing a GTR to extract all the fun out of it, whereas the GTT, you really don't. You can toss it around. It's a rear drive car. It's lightweight, much lighter than the GTR, and I think it is more fun more of the time on the street than a GTR is. Oh my God. The neighbors hate us. But it is. I mean, and literally for a 20th of the price. So, I mean, I would definitely look at the Laurel and the Skyline, you guys. I know these cars are right up your alley. I love them, and it's really cool to see what the community is able to squeeze out of the RB25. We have a bunch of engine code jet tags right here, RB20, 25, and 26, as well as 1J, 2J. We've got like, I don't know how, we have like 30 plus designs now. So check it out, the link is in the description. I'll give you guys 10% off for any RB engine codes today, just because we're living the RB life. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit me up on Instagram. Hit both of these owners up on Instagram as well. All the links are in the description. See you guys soon.